Last question for you. We talked
Sure.
about a lot of the big name players and trade candidates. Are there any other guys that you're interested in kind of just following their free agency? I think this class, even though there's not a ton of star power at the top, there are a lot of guys that can be impact players on a playoff team or a contender.
Mhm.
There's a lot of role players, guys that I'm interested in seeing. Like, there's a Bruce Brown, Tyus Jones, Malik Monk. There's some interesting guys that have missed time, like TJ Warren, Victor Oladipo. We mentioned Colin Sexton. Some questionable guys that are younger that have like kind of shown flashes, like a Marvin Bagley,
Yeah.
Jalen Smith. There's a lot of
You-
interesting names in this
tho-
class.
those last two are good names, I think. Gary Payton II is an interesting one for me. This is a guy that was an NBA nomad, and now he's found the role and a niche in the league. And Kevon Looney's going to potentially double his salary on an average annual basis. I think, Alex, the thing that has caught my eye going into this free agency is the center market, because there are a lot of them. And in musical chairs, someone's going to get caught without a chair, and I'm curious who that's going to be. You look at the Orlando Magic, they draft Paolo Banchero, my Paisan, what the Italians hope will be a better first overall pick than Andrea Bargnani. It was not so good. I'm just being cheeky. He had a couple of decent years with Toronto, but the hope for Paolo Banchero, is through the roof, certainly. But what does that mean for Mo Bamba in
Yeah.
Orlando? His qualifying offer decision that they have to figure out whether they're going to make him a restricted free agency or not, free agent or not. Nicholas Claxton, some people put out, oh, maybe the Houston Rockets could be a fit for him. I didn't necessarily see that because they've got Alperen Şengün there, and it probably is going to take close to, if not the full mid-level exception, for a non-taxpayer rate around $10 million or so to keep him. Really young guy with upside, so usually you see those guys get maybe a little bit more than their current production because they're going to grow into those contracts. Mitchell Robinson, we touched on. Yusuf Nurkic, I expect to stay in Portland, and get a decent salary there, depending on what they do with the rest of free agency. Obviously, Deandre Ayton. I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anybody. You got Montrezl Harrell's situation is going to be interesting now, given his legal situation at the moment. I'm trying to think. Kevon Looney, I touched on. He's going to get double the salary. Andre Drummond, guy
Yeah.
that played well for stretches in Brooklyn during the regular season. Looked like he kind of helped his value a little bit there. That's a lot of names, Alex, and I wouldn't be shocked if I'm, missing another one or two from that pile. So that to me is one of the things I'm looking at when it comes to free agency, that center position for sure.
Yeah, there's some interesting backups too, like Isaiah Hartenstein, Hassan Whiteside, JaVale
There it
McGee.
is.
There's
There
a
you
lot.
go.
Yeah, there's quite a few. You're right. There's a lot of centers this year, which is interesting. And I'm curious to see how the league values them too, just kind of given how the NBA shifted and where the league is today. So plenty of centers. And I didn't even mention, we talked about role players that can help a winning team. You have Nick Batum, PJ Tucker, Thad Young, Otto Porter Jr., Patty Mills, Gary Harris, the Martin twins. Like there's a lot of guys that, even though they're not star level players, they could potentially help a team.
Let's bring that back a little slower though. Thaddeus Young, okay. Toronto has interest in bringing him back. I've done that a podcast on that. Who were some of the other guys you had said?
Gary Harris is one, Otto Porter Jr., PJ Tucker, who everyone's been talking about
Does
recently.
Sean Marks finally get his man Otto Porter?
Finally.
PJ Tucker, I mean, this is a guy, full mid-level guy. Does he get it from Miami? Does he get it from Philly for the 3 years?
Yeah.
That's the biggest
He's
question right now.
Yeah, he just keeps cashing checks. At his age, it's pretty incredible. He's still able to play at a high level too. Nick
Yeah.
Batum, another one. Speaking of cashing checks,
Nick was a guy that executives had mentioned to me would be around 10 million a year. So you're talking like maybe a 2 for 20 or 3 for 30. If I had to peg it right now, I would look at the Clippers for sure, with him
yeah.
going back there, because they have his bird rights. I think it's early. Is it early bird rights? I'm not, forgive me, all the, the cap gurus out there, but it's some type of bird rights that they have on him. I have to look it up in my notes, but that's kind of the figure I had him at as well.